Do you really know how to do a kegel? Has anyone ever really sat down with you and walked you through it? If you just learn that it's about the same movement when you're holding your pee, that's not enough, because our pelvic floor muscles are 3 layers. It's so many different parts. It's not just one muscle. It's so many different muscles working together.
Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen within your relationships, within your work, and most importantly, within the relationship with yourself. In this podcast, we talk about all things self-love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and more. Hi, I'm your host, Celia Antonio, and I'm a women's self-love coach, mindfulness expert, and a multifaceted being here for your most grounded and expansive self-expression. You can connect with me on Instagram at selfexpressbabe, and for my guest episodes, there will always be links in the show notes to find them online. I give my deepest thanks to you for being here and spending time with me today. Now let's begin our journey. Hello, welcome back to Openly Spoken. Today we are talking about a vast, intimate, and sensitive subject of painful sex and the pelvis. And we are joined today by Steffi Von Brunner. Steffi is a body worker, yoga teacher, and pelvic embodiment coach specialized in the female pelvis. Through years of research, training, courses, and books, she's developed a knowledge of many different practices to help create space in the body, mind, and spirit. And Steffi specializes in helping women and people born with a uterus to achieve this goal. She's trained with pelvic physiotherapists, and she's been studying things like Qi Xiang, living lightly massage, pelvic massage, and combining all of her different practices and different trainings and time of research and learning has given her a comprehensive understanding of the pelvis and how to help people with pelvic issues. Steffi's mission is to empower women to take back their pelvic power and pelvic health. I hope that this episode can teach you something new about your body. I hope that it can inspire you to slow down. And I thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Steffi, to Openly Spoken. I'm so excited to have you here and to talk about all things pelvic floor and painful sex. And yeah, I'm very excited. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Yeah. So shall we start with maybe you sharing your kind of like story and journey of how you got here? Because before this call, I was like sitting down with your bio of everything that you wrote me, and I'm just like, wow, you have like an extensive background of all these different trainings. And even I think it's very interesting that you studied architecture and now you're working with the pelvic floor and just kind of like making that kind of like metaphor of how like the pelvic floor is like the foundation in like within architecture. There's like foundation of a building. So I'd love to also know your thoughts about like your perspective of how you look at the pelvic floor, the bones, the muscles that are there, and like from that perspective of having that architecture training. And yeah, I feel like I'm just throwing a lot at you right now, like all these things. So we'll just give you the floor to start with whatever's alive.
All right. Well, let's just start with my journey.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I did study architecture, but I'm definitely not doing anything with architecture anymore. So I'm working with the body now. But yeah, when I was studying architecture, I really went into yoga. And yoga led me to dive into the pelvis. When I started yoga, you were talking about architecture and the pelvis. I actually saw and still see the body as a building. Like when
cool.
I put someone in a yoga posture, I think about where to put every part of the body to create the best possible building or posture and body,
Yeah.
putting every
Yeah. And they
bone
tell
on
us
top
in
of each
the
other.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they tell us
Yeah.
in yoga teacher training to like look at the hands and the feet like first and then go
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. You start at the ground, you start at the foundation. So I love that you already made that connection, and as you're really right, the pelvis and the pelvic floor, it's the base of our body. Now, of course, the base, it starts at the feet, but then when we look at our torso and the part of our body with all the organs and all the stuff going on, then the pelvis is absolutely the base. But yeah,
Yeah.
I dove into the pelvis because I was dealing with my own pelvic issues. And when I was doing my advanced teacher training, yoga teacher training, they were asking us to do a personal project, and you could do basically anything you like. And I thought, well, I think it might be interesting to see how yoga can help someone who experiences painful sex. And because a big part of the painful sex is a muscle, and with yoga we work with muscles. So I thought, why not research that? And when I was doing that project, there was actually a research going on, I think in California, where they were looking into how yoga could support women who have not well, they also did the tight pelvic floor, but they had good results for the pelvic floor that's a little bit too loose. And that I found it amazing that I was researching it, and there was actually real research going on. And it showed that women who experience incontinence really, really benefit from doing yoga, because the basis in yoga is our pelvis as well, and we work a lot with our core, and that's from where we build up all the other postures. So I dove into the pelvis, and it went everywhere. I did a training with a pelvic floor physio, but I also went into body work, and I give belly massages. And I think the belly massage that I do, it's called Qinetsang, which is a Taoist massage. And I found it so amazing because it really helps to release stuck emotions, stuck stress, trauma from your body, and also specifically your lower belly and your pelvis. And I found much relief from that. So I started to train in that as well. And but the pelvis stayed really central in all that I'm doing. And right now I'm helping women who experience pelvic pain, who experience painful sex. And I support them in their journey back to health, in their journey of healing their own body. And I really love supporting them.
Yeah. I'm curious too how that journey looks like for, I feel like people who are born with uteruses, there's so many different chapters in life. You know, there's pregnancy, there's postnatal, there's like, you know, perimenopausal, menopause, and like I'm curious what the differences are with all of that and how that journey looks like, and if that's something that you also tap into with your work.
Well, what I found the most interesting thing is that we never learn about pelvic health until you either get pregnant or you get an issue going on within your pelvis or with the womb or with the vulva. And that was something that was like, there's so much we can do to prevent all those things if we just learn about our pelvic health and how to take care and really take care of ourselves and our pelvis. And the pelvis changes. The pelvic floor changes throughout our different cycles. And when we, as women, move into menopause, the pelvis shifts with the uterus shrinking. And that has an effect on the other organs within the pelvis and how that sits on our pelvic floor muscles. And the same goes when you are pregnant and when you have a baby inside, it's the pelvic floor that's carrying all that. And then when you give birth, it's the pelvic floor that needs to open. And also works in what's a lot of work for the uterus to push the baby out. And all those things really affect our pelvic floor.
I was doing some keyword research like an hour before this call, and I was looking up painful sex, and then also separately like pelvic, like just typing in pelvic floor and seeing what comes up. And you're right, like all of the results had to do with either pregnancy or menopause. Like there was nothing before. And I even looked up, because I was curious about like what are people Googling about pelvic yoga. And there were zero questions popped up about pelvic yoga. And then when I scrolled down to the other, like it was just such scarce results. Like people don't know that pelvic yoga is a thing. I barely honestly even knew pelvic yoga was a thing until maybe like right before finding your account. And you make a very good point that it's something that we need to know about to know how to take care of ourselves, because we all have pelvises, no matter what gender we are, we have a pelvis. And what are some of the things that you wish people were asking about your pelvic floor?
Well, I think one thing, it's important that our pelvic floor and specifically the muscles are healthy, that they are able to contract, but also able to relax. So a lot of time we are told to do strengthening exercises because we need a strong pelvic floor. And although I do agree that our pelvic floor needs to carry a lot, but at the same time, we don't want to overwork it. And we also need to learn how to soften and relax and release the pelvic floor, because a lot of times for people, the pelvic floor is already a little bit tight because of stress. We live in a very stressful world that all is being held within our body. And then our pelvic floor is being tight and tense. We tuck the tail a lot, the way we sit, the way we are being. We really tuck that tailbone under. But when you tuck the tailbone under, the pelvic floor muscles are being shortened. And we actually want to lengthen them, but we also need to be able to contract them. So it's finding that balance. And a lot of times I feel like the message is to really strengthen it a lot. And especially after birth,
while you're sitting in your desk.
And do you really know how to do a Kegel? Has anyone ever really sat down with you and walked you through it? And like you get that when you go to a pelvic floor physio, when you are having issues, they talk you through it. They teach you how to do it correctly. But if you just learn that it's about like the same movement when you're holding your pee, that's not enough, because our pelvic floor muscles are it's 3 layers. It's so many different parts. It's not just one muscle. It's so many different muscles working together. And it's not just about holding your pee, because we also have the back door, we have the anus, we have the perineum. It's a big muscle. It's not just on the front.
So would those 3 parts be what you would like, how you would direct someone to do Kegel, or does it depend on the person's body? Like, is it different for everyone depending on
different cues work for different people, and I would say the best way is to insert your finger and feel. So if you feel when you contract and you feel that around your finger the muscles are pulling in and up, you're working the muscles. But if you don't feel anything, then not a lot is happening. Or if you feel like really tight squeeze, maybe you're overdoing it. Maybe it's a little bit more tight. And you can insert your finger in the vagina, but you can also do it in the anus and see how it is there. Because, like I said, we have the front, we have the back, we have a left side and a right side. You might notice when you do it that only the left side is contracting and the right side is very loose and you don't feel anything, or the other way around, or the front and the back. So it's very, I think beautiful, but difficult also a little bit, because there are so many different parts.
Yeah. And how do you think, I'm curious, how do you think that, I'm not sure where it is, where you're in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how different it is in the Netherlands with like taboos around sexuality, but I'm curious your thoughts about how, like, when a society has taboos around sexuality and essentially like your body, like how that is affecting us knowing about our pelvic floor and being able to connect with it, and being able to, like, even going to a doctor and admitting that you need some sort of care for the pelvic floor, like that could be traumatizing for some people, or like scary because of the taboos, or maybe even because of trauma. I'm curious to know your thoughts about that.
I think it absolutely is a big influence. If I am talking for myself, it really took some time to actually go to my GP and say, hey, I am having pain with sex. Because the guy that I have a younger GP now, but the one that I had was really old. It's like my father's age. And it's just, it feels weird to talk with him about it, because the doctor has known me my whole life, and I went there for quite some years. It doesn't feel nice somehow. It feels for me, it felt really awkward, and I felt a little bit ashamed. And there is a taboo on it, absolutely, also here in the Netherlands. And I've heard that a lot with my clients and with other women I'm talking about these things with. And it doesn't mean that here in the Netherlands we don't go, but there's still a taboo. And especially, I think, because we don't talk a lot about how sex can be painful. When I first started to experience painful sex, I really thought that I was alone, and that everybody has sex. And I never hear about.
There's also always this, like, at least from my perspective, this expecting it to hurt, especially like the first time you have sex. Like there's an expectation of that. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that also is part of why women or people with vulvas and vaginas, they just push through, and they just I don't know how you say that in English, but if I translate it from Dutch, it's like clenching your teeth and you just push through. Because the sex, you do it for your partner, for the guy. And as a woman, you're not supposed to really enjoy it anyway. Things like that. I think that also play a role for a lot of women who experience painful sex and don't talk about it. And
that's sometimes a distinction that people make, like with speaking. I don't know if you can hear a motorcycle just drove by. But I know, at least I'd be curious to know, with, all of the trainings you've had, I know that at least in yoga and the system of like the chakras, there's this connection between the throat chakra and the pelvic floor. And usually there'll be pictures put side by side of the muscles and how similar they look. And I'm curious, like, is there actual like scientific evidence of that, or is that just something that there's a similarity?
Well, there is a similarity, but when you look at a human being conceived when we're still an embryo,
Mm-hmm.
the throat and the pelvis are still together. And then when the embryo develops, that's where the spine develops in between.
Oh, interesting.
So there's an embryonic, if you say that in English, connection.
Yeah.
And then there's definitely an energetic connection between the throat and between the pelvis. And then if you look at the muscles, like you said, you see those beautiful pictures next to each other. They're very similar. And I see that also a lot. I think I see that in myself, but also in the women I work with. A lot of time, people with a tight pelvic floor, pelvic pain, vaginismus, they find it hard to like really open the throat and like make like these animal kind of sounds and just letting go. And that's something I sometimes still struggle with as well. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, but I definitely see that with all the people and women I'm working with, that they find that hard.
Yeah. It's interesting how how you mentioned before, how women will just like grit their teeth and go through it. So they're having that tightness and that pain, and then they're not saying anything. And then like just both like the tightness in both areas get worse. And since we were talking about like cultural taboos, I think something that also doesn't help is that there's kind of an importance put on being tight, like on having a tight vagina.
Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes see those things coming by, and I'm like, we don't want a tight vagina, please. No. Because it sounds good, but it's all for the guy's pleasure, and the woman will have pain. A really tight vagina, I will say it's overly tight pelvic floor muscles. And please don't. Focus on your own pleasure.
Yeah. Would you like to share any like maybe exercises to go from like if people know that they're really tight to relax?
Well, we were talking about the connection between the throat and the pelvis. A really nice way of finding relaxation in the pelvis and the pelvic floor is a breathing exercise. It's called the bumblebee breath, where you hum. And when you hum, you relax your throat, but you can feel it all the way humming, vibrating down into your pelvis. And it's really easy. I will demonstrate. Where you just go and you can go for as long as you like. I can always do it long, but but when you do it, you feel the vibration in your throat and in your jaw. But if you focus and you really settle down into your body, you can feel it all the way down into your pelvis, into your vagina, into your pussy. You can feel that vibration. And that vibration will help to relax. And another way to use your breath to relax and to create space and to soften is just deep breathing. Belly breathing, but not so much that you're pushing your belly out with your muscles, but you're really breathing into your diaphragm, into your lower ribs, so you can really feel the lower ribs opening up on each inhale, and that you feel as a natural reaction the belly rise. So it's not a pushing, but it's a natural rising. And then a natural softening back down. It's not pulling in, but just relaxing back down. And when you breathe down, you can breathe all the way down into your pelvic floor muscles. You can, if you stay focused and you do it a couple times, you can actually start to feel those pelvic floor muscles respond to the breath. And that's so healthy for the muscles because that's what they naturally want to do. They want to move with the breath. And the more movement, the more blood flow, the more energy flow, the healthier the tissue and the muscles become. And when we don't breathe with that much depth and we breathe more higher in our chest, there's no movement. and the muscles
Mm-hmm.
get more tight and more stuck, more dry.
Mm-hmm.
And we just want to make it moving and flowing and happy and healthy.
Yeah, I love that. It's really cool how like just some breaths are so helpful for the body, like even physically, on a physical level, on an emotional level, a spiritual level. And I love that humming because it's like you get a free little sound bath.
Yeah.
I
No,
love
the
sound
humming
baths.
is, yeah, the humming is really nice. And even that for some people is hard because you're making sound. And
Mm-hmm.
but that's such a great first step of trying to open up the throat, making sound, and learning
Mm-hmm.
to create softness and space in your pelvis.
And that softness and space, I'm sure, even in your daily life, because you've mentioned how most people were walking around, we're stressed, we're tucking the tailbone under, so the pelvic muscles are tight. Our daily lives right now, for most of us, it's, very fast. We're not living in tribes. We're living inside. We're doing and doing and doing. And so I can only imagine that probably making more space to relax in your life and stepping away from being productive all the time is maybe also helpful for the pelvic floor, like to release that tension and
Yeah,
stress. Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's when I work with people, we start with the breath, but we also look at the rest of the life and having
Mm-hmm.
these moments of relaxation, of connecting to your body that creates space in your life, in your mind, in your body, in your pelvis, in your soul.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important that that everybody creates those moments throughout their day where they're just connecting to their body.
How do you like to create those moments?
Well, I start every morning on my meditation pillow and breathe, and I usually do some grounding there as well and connecting. I love to breathe from my heart to my womb and then back up to the heart, really creating that connection between
Mm.
the heart and the womb. And then throughout the day, I just take moments whenever I notice that I'm really distracted or I'm really in my head and I'm stressful. And then I'm like, okay, let's sit down, let's take a couple breaths. And maybe that's just 1 minute, maybe it's 2 minutes, but that is already such a big change.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love doing yoga nidra naps in the afternoon.
Oh, yes, those are the best. Even just a half hour one feels like you slept for like 8 hours.
Absolutely. Yeah, if I don't have a lot of time, I even sometimes just do 20 minutes and that just really it gives so much. I
Yeah.
think it's amazing how deeply it relaxes you. And I have a tracker that tracks my heartbeat and everything, like and my sleep. And whenever I
Mm-hmm.
do a yoga nidra, it always thinks I'm napping.
I love that. I have a yoga nidra video I like to watch on YouTube, and it's 15 minutes of a yoga nidra, and then it's 15 minutes of sound healing. And it's so good.
Mm, great. Yeah.
I have to set a little alarm for 30 minutes though, because by the end, I'm usually like about to fall asleep or I'm already sleeping.
That's a good sign. Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
have a yoga nidra on Insight Timer that's focused on pelvic healing.
Oh,
So
nice.
where
Yeah.
I use the 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 rhythm of yoga nidra and the different steps of yoga nidra to really dive into the pelvis and do a little bit of womb healing as well.
Nice. Is that something that we could put a link in the show notes or caption?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I'll make sure I get that from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious if there are any questions that you wish I would ask you about either painful sex or the pelvic floor. Like, is there something that you maybe have like on your heart that you're like, I really want to share this piece of information or knowledge or wisdom or inspiration or whatever it is?
Well, I think one really important thing that I learned, and I wish everyone, women, men, all genders, knew, is that for a body with a vulva and a vagina, it takes 30 to 45 minutes to get fully ready for penetration. And a
Oh,
lot of
yes.
times we get turned on and we want to have sex. And then with sex, I think everything is sex. I think that's also something we need to change. There's no foreplay, it's all sex. But we get turned on and then we immediately want to get the penis in the vagina and ready. But the body's not ready. And that's, of course, the big difference between a body with a penis and a body with a vagina is that the penis is ready in no time.
Mm-hmm.
But the vagina needs time to open, to engorge, to get all the blood flowing there, to get super wet so it's ready. And then also, even though she's wet, use lube. I know when I was younger, I thought using lube was a bad thing, but it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a few people listening who hopefully feel validated by that, because I feel like women are shamed a lot of times, and I've definitely experienced that, of like how long it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And even like sometimes even that shame could come from yourself, comparing how long it takes with whatever age you are now compared to like when you were a teenager, where you're just like ready.
Yeah.
Or like early 20s where you're just like ready. So yeah, it's totally normal to take that time and to slow down.
And if you do take that time and you slow down, it's so much more pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also, for me, one reason, among many others, to take it slow and just take that time and to not rush, because of course it already feels good, but it can feel amazing. So why not go for that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah. And that can like totally change your perspective on sexuality and sex and even like life in general.
Yeah.
When you can slow down. Like an example that's coming to me is like how when you slow down with your food, you can like really taste all the flavors and take in all the textures, and having those little moments of pleasure in life, just in like the mundane, I feel like can be so fulfilling, because normally we think we have to like go on a vacation or I don't know, buy something luxurious in order to feel like life is great and perfect. But if we can just every day in these little mundane ways really enjoy and take in pleasure, whether it is from sex or food or a cup of tea or the sunlight on your skin, like there's so many examples I could think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It adds such a beautiful layer to life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have some questions that I usually ask every guest, and feel free to answer the question. And if anything comes in related to the pelvic floor or painful sex, like I'm totally here for that, weaving into some sort of conversation. So the first question is, what does self-love mean to you?
For me, self-love is really taking care of myself and my body, my pelvis. It's really taking it slow, taking the time, and taking a lot of rest. I think we live in a world that's so fast-paced, and I know my body, but I know a lot of bodies are not made for that, and we need rest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think rest is so important. I think for a long time, I lived my life in a way that I thought I needed to earn rest. So I needed to work really hard and then I could rest. But I'm getting into a phase of my life where I'm like, I'm resting anyway.
That's I want to celebrate you for that because that's big.
Yeah. It took some time to get here.
Yeah. And that's also so relatable. Like even in corporate jobs here, like you need to work, some of them, you need to work there for at least a year before you earn 2 weeks vacation. Like it's like you have to earn the rest.
Yeah, it's so ingrained in everything that we need to work hard and then you're allowed to have rest. So you need to work 5 days and then you can have a weekend of 2 days. You can be free.
Yeah. I think it's because rest is usually seen as like being lazy or like wasting time.
Yeah.
When really it's like, or even if you, for example, are working on a big project that has a deadline, in that stressful situation, taking a 5-minute break, they'll see it as a waste of time or I don't have time for that. When really the ironic thing is like if you take 5 minutes to just take some breaths or lay down and not think of anything, like you come back to whatever it is you're doing with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective and able to do it better than you were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
It's such an ironic little paradox.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think a lot of jobs, you need to work 8 hours every day and they pay you for the hours that you work. But I think we should actually pay people for what they give, what they produce, in a way that I think a lot of people can do the same work they are doing right now with less hours and just have more time for themselves to rest, to release. And for the business, they still get all the work done, but everybody will be happier. Yeah. And a lot of times you're just sitting at your job, trying to get through the hours, not taking time off, not resting, not really there. So you're working half. And if you can do the same work in half the time, if you're rested and focused and happy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's also an important thing to see that if companies did that, they'd be able to retain people rather than people who is quitting and the stress of like finding someone else. I think we might be headed in that direction possibly, of like honoring more rest in the workplace. I feel like it's happening very slowly.
Really slowly.
Really slowly. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, I don't really mean to genderize things, but I think that comes from like more women-owned businesses happening, because typically a woman is, cyclical. There are times of the month where more rest is needed, whereas a man's cycle or testosterone-based cycle is more like linear, of like there's the peak of energy within a day rather than stretched out with a month. But the like history of business, it's been mostly like male dominated, and we've been shifting to having more women-owned businesses as well. So I think it might be coming from that. And also just knowing more, like we have more information available now.
Absolutely.
About rest.
Yeah.
So another question that I usually ask people is, what makes you feel the most grounded?
Breathing. Definitely breathing. And for me, if I notice that I'm not grounded in my body, what always does the trick to help me get back into my body is dancing.
Ooh, Love that.
moving the body, that really helps me to ground back into my body.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Dancing is such a fun way to ground. I love doing that too.
Yeah, dancing is
Yeah.
good, and it's so good. I always dance also a lot with my pelvis and my hips, and to really move it and to create space and to let the energy flow in my pelvis. So it's a great way to connect to the pelvis as well.
Yeah. Amazing. So there's one question I usually ask towards the end, but I've been playing with adding an additional one that's similar. So you're the first person I'm asking this, and I'm curious to know what your answer will be. What is your favorite part about being human?
Good question. I would say the body. I just really
No surprise.
even though for me, I've had, and sometimes still have, if I'm stressed, if I'm not feeling well, my pelvis and stress, it plays up my pain and my tightness. So even though I've had a lot of issues and a lot of pain in my life, I love my body. I love to feel my body. I love that experience of moving your body, feeling your body, breathing through your body, letting the energy flow through your body. I think that's just something I really love doing every day. And I think that's also part of why I love the work I do, where I do body work. I'm working with my body. And I think that's also a big part of why I left the architecture world behind and went in a complete different direction, because I love buildings. I love architecture. I can still, like yesterday I was I was at a concert in a beautiful event location, which was an old industrial building. And I think the whole concert, I was just looking up at the building and not so much at the band I was watching. Because that's still something that lights me up.
Yeah.
But the body, my body, and other people's body, I love touching other people's body. That's why I'm doing body work. I love guiding people back into their body, feeling their body. It's amazing. This is our vessel. This is what we got here.
Yeah. I love that. Did you always have this love for, because one of the things you said was you were like, I love my body. Did you always have this love of your body, or was there like a pivotal entry point that helped you get to that?
No, I definitely have not always loved my body. When you experience a lot of pain, it's hard sometimes to love your body. And of course, still there are some days that I'm not such a big fan of the body, but most of the times I am. And I think for me, what shifted was that I stumbled upon a free practice from Layla, from where we met, which is a breathwork practice focused on loving your body. And I did that every day for such a long time. And it just made that big transition of, no, I love my body. This is a good body.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned also that it can be hard to love your body when you feel pain. And I would love to give you the floor to maybe share how you react or relate to pain when you feel pain, because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, and like I've even had friends who are experiencing like chronic pain, and it is hard. I haven't experienced it myself, but I've seen that it's hard to not judge your own body or to wish it was different, and to be in this space of like, oh, my whole day is ruined because I'm feeling this pain. So what is something you would say to someone who is in that kind of headspace right now?
be kind to yourself. And for me, that meant taking pain medication. And I know I'm in the yoga world. We need to be all natural and stuff. But if you're in a lot of pain and your body is in high stress because the pain is so much, take pain medication. Because it can make everything so much better. And that's something I really needed to learn. And that's something that I've recently learned, that in the past I would not do that. And I would just breathe through it and just, I don't know, I still love the hot water bottle. Warmth is amazing. But also depending on what kind of pain you have, of course. I imagine if you have a headache, you don't want to put the warm water bottle on your head. But I think, being kind to yourself, listening to the body. If your body is screaming, try different things. Talk to your doctor. Also a good one. Don't try to do it on your own. And what really helps me is to take my time. I cancel things now when I am having a bad day, when I have a painful day, because the work I do with my body. And if my body is in pain, I can't really do the work I need to do on a level that I want to do it. But of course, I can push through, because that's what we learn in our society, that you just push through and you just keep going. I can do that. But should we?
Yeah, exactly.
I think no.
Yeah.
But it's really about being kind to yourself, being soft to yourself. And I know I've had really bad moments where I was just hitting my body, that it was in pain. Like, I don't want this anymore. It's so much. That's okay too, if that happens. And if you're in that space.
Yeah, that's a good stance to come from, of like, whatever is happening, it's okay. And like, because sometimes we add that extra shame on like how we react, and then it keeps on going, and then you can't get out of that. But I love what you said about the being kind to yourself. And there's actually something that I saw that I underlined. I was flipping through this book. Have you read this book?
Yeah, I love that book.
I was flipping through it before our call, and I saw something that I underlined that reminds me of what you just said. And it says, you can't get your body's communication wrong as long as you are being kind and loving towards yourself. For the people listening to audio, the book is called Body Conscious by Taryn Godin, Gaudin. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. But I love that about the being kind to yourself, and that sometimes that is taking medication, because that can be a big topic, especially for people coming from the wellness space, or people who, like, for me, my mom growing up, like, she didn't give us medication. It was like, you drink your green tea or the ginger, like, it was always all natural. So I also have a hard time taking medication. If I take an Advil for a headache, it was a really bad headache. But I've only started doing that recently. So I love that you give that, like, permission. So did you want to say something on that?
I think it's just give yourself that permission. And of course, if you want, try the natural stuff first. But if it's not working, if it's not giving enough relief, take the Advil.
And you're not a failure if you're taking meds. It's not that you failed.
Absolutely,
it's just the tool that's available.
I love that. It's a tool.
So the other question that I ask usually, that's related to the one I just asked, is what's your favorite part about being a woman?
I want to say it was quite a journey to get here, but I love having my blood every month. I love my menstruation. I think in the past, I hated it. I was like, why do I have this? And of course, sometimes I still have that in the days towards it because I can sometimes have PMS and have some issues going on. But the moment the blood comes, there's so much space, and it's just like a permission for myself to let go, to release, to rest.
Yeah.
I just love that we as women have that moment every month where we can let go.
Yeah.
And that our body is really showing us the wisdom of letting go, how important that is. And it's really showing us how to do it.
I love that. That's a beautiful perspective, that it's our body's wisdom showing us to let go.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And I can relate. Yeah. So for the people listening or watching, where can they find you and find out more about your work and possibly work with you as well?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram on Steffi Von Brunner. And that's also my website, steffivonbrunner.com, where is all the info. And I'm going to share the link for the Yoga Nidra.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll put the link to your Instagram and website also. Yay. Perfect. Do you have any closing words before we end our recording?
Just love your pelvis.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Openly Spoken. I know that there's an abundance of content online, so I really appreciate you giving me your ears today. If this episode shifted something for you, please share this with a friend and/or write us a podcast review if you're listening to this on iTunes so that more people can find this. If anything shifted for you from this episode that you want to have a conversation about, I would love to hear from you. Just send me a DM over on Instagram at selfexpressbabe, and that is in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.